Hola, I'm Claudia Romo Edelman.
And I'm Cynthia Kleinbaum Milner.
And this is a podcast a la Latina.
The Playbook to succeed being your authentic self.
Today, Nanette Cocero, former global president of the vaccines divisions at Pfizer.
In this episode, you're going to learn 3 main takeaways.
Number 1, why being a Latina gave her the upper edge in leading the development of the COVID-19 vaccine in record time.
Number 2, the importance of speaking up to be noticed. But make sure that you're well prepared, that you have the facts, and that you anticipate the questions that will be asked.
And number 3, how being her unapologetic self became her superpower and gave her an edge.
This and more in a podcast
A la Latina. Hola, welcome to the podcast A la Latina.
The Playbook to succeed being your authentic self.
Today, an incredible leader, trailblazer, incredible pathbreaker, Nanette Cocero.
Nanette spent 21 years at Pfizer. Her last role was global president of the vaccines division. She led the development and launch of the COVID vaccine. She's a board director at PharmaJet, a company that focuses on needle-free injection solutions, which my kids are going to love. She's also on the board of Hilevax, a publicly traded biopharmaceutical company focused on the development and commercialization of novel vaccines.
And finally, she's a board director for IDEA Public Schools, one of the fastest-growing network of tuition-free K-12 public charter schools. Nanette, what a pleasure having you here today.
I'm very excited to be here with both of you. And again, with our objective of sharing our experiences that will help our younger women, Latinas, to continue growing and grow even faster in their careers.
I mean, you're a true trailblazer. You have made history and you have saved so many millions of lives. I would like to start with our favorite subject of the day, you. What made you be who you are and what you do today? Tell us about your background.
I have lived in several countries. I have lived in Puerto Rico, which is where my mother is from. I have lived in Spain, which is where my father is from. I have lived in the United States, which is where I did my education. And again, growing in an immigrant family, my parents were always encouraging my siblings and myself to aim high at all times. Also, as immigrants, my parents raised us with the responsibility to have a positive impact, to contribute to the community that we lived in and to the world around us. And also, having lived in different countries, that taught me to be sensitive about the different cultures. And it also taught me to be respectful of different ideas. These became important success factors for me as my career grew at Pfizer, especially when I was getting the opportunities to have global roles. So my heritage definitely played an important role in who I am, but also in how I grew professionally.
Can you talk to us about your education? Why did you decide to study in the US? I also know that you have a PhD, you have an MBA, you've gone to school more than most people. Why did you make those decisions?
Well, the PhD goes along the lines of aiming high. Right? So I started with a PhD in pharmacology. And then as I was doing my PhD in pharmacology, I grew an interest in business. And I was curious to know what kind of positive impact I could have beyond the laboratory research walls.
Because most people that do a PhD in pharmacology work in the lab. Yeah.
Yes, you stay in academia. Mm-hmm. Yes. So then I went ahead and combined my PhD in pharmacology with an MBA. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate that I could get both at Wharton Business School. I could get both at the University of Pennsylvania. Of course, the business school is the Wharton Business School. And this combination then allowed me to grow my career in the healthcare industry. And then this combination also allowed me to have positions like new product planning, positions in marketing, general management, and then the ultimate role that I had at Pfizer, which was being the global president for the vaccine portfolio at Pfizer.
I feel like you just jumped ahead. I'm going to take you back.
Okay.
Why did you study pharmacology? We know Claudia has the stats, but it's not a career that Latinas would normally pursue. I don't know the numbers. You know the numbers.
So just to put that into perspective, it's so important for our audience to hear that aim high is an encouragement to get you further, particularly in STEM. We have been making waves. We are 19% of the population, and we used to be 1% in STEM. Now that percentage is really growing, and we're getting to 3 to 5% in STEM. But in PhDs, we're only 1% of our population that manages that. It seems to be like a daunting or very expensive choice to make. But particularly in natural life sciences, is an area where we still have to push for more and more Latino insertion. And it seems to me one of the reasons why we're not there is because we don't have the encouragement. No one told us. We don't have the role models. If you can't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in my case, I have always was interested in sciences. And as an undergrad, my major was chemistry. And then, again, in my interest of getting closer to applying the science into human body is that then comes pharmacology. But then again, my interest on then going beyond the walls of a laboratory lab comes the business degree. So it's that full combination of science and business that I develop as passion. Why? Because that allowed me to do my ultimate goal, which was to have a global impact in public health.
Were your parents in STEM or in global health? Because I would have never thought about making an impact in global health. So how did it come to you?
Yes, well, I mean, my dad came to Puerto Rico to marry my mother. And again, I don't know that we want to go into the details on how they met, but they met when my mother went to Madrid for a vacation. They dated for 2 years via letters. And then my father left Madrid, left his mom, his sister, to marry my mother in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
But it was during the time of Franco. And during that time, as you know, opportunities for middle to low class people were very limited. And he saw coming to Puerto Rico as an opportunity to grow. Then in Puerto Rico, he studied physics. And he got a master's in physics. Then he was a professor in physics. So that's how the STEM came about. My mother, on the other hand, was on the side of entertainment. I don't know if my uncle is Paquito Cordero in Puerto Rico. Do you know that name? And my mother and my uncle were partner to bring entertainment to Puerto Rico. Nidia Caro, Chucho Avellanet. I don't know if those names ring a bell to you. So it was totally two different areas. But then my interest leaned towards the science, towards the STEM. Maybe because in my mind, I thought that was the harder part to do. And that's how
what a love
science
story.
came into me.
That's a beautiful love story.
And just like seeing it through your career, strategically for the Latino community, we have to get into those professions because tech and healthcare are two areas in which we're underrepresented, but they're the future. So I think that it is encouraging to have you so that younger Latinas and younger mothers can tell their kids that it is a great area to go, so we can encourage more and more people to not only aim high, but aim high in areas where the future lies. Do you want to talk a little bit more about where do you see STEM, particularly the pharma and the healthcare industry going?
Absolutely. It is an area that, while, as you mentioned, we have been increasing our Latin representation in different industries, science and technology continues to be lagging even significantly more than any other of the industries. I mean, I think that in the pharma space, the percentages of Latina women are in the low teens. I'm not even sure if they are even double digit, to be honest with you. So it is an area that we need to continue raising the awareness and continue providing younger women the confidence that it can be done and that you can be anything that you want to be, and that nothing and nobody should hold you back. And that if you get accepted into, as you know, into any of the universities in the United States, it's because you can do it. So there's no need to doubt yourself. There's no need to have insecurities that even if you get accepted to Cornell or Harvard or any of the top schools in the United States, oh my God, am I gonna be able to compete? Yes, of course you will be able to compete, and you need to go for it, and you need to make it happen and really have the courage to make it happen, which that comes then with the resilience that we have as Latin women.
And let's face it, you, Nanette, are a celebrity of science. You're Nobel Prize winner material. I've heard your name, particularly in the time of COVID, where I learned that the first vaccine, I don't know, for people that you remember how desperate we were in a COVID time to when is the vaccine gonna come and how are we gonna get out of this one? And then it was you, a Latina, that invented the COVID vaccine. And I cannot tell you how proud I am of you, of having a Latina, having done that, and how much I wish my mother would have gotten COVID after, so that I would have allowed, like her to enjoy the benefit of your incredible work, so that she could have gotten the vaccine before passing.
Yes, well, first of all, I am truly and genuinely sorry for your loss, and thank you for your kind words. Of course, it was not me. It was a team that involved a combination of Pfizer scientists and BioNTech scientists and people in the regulatory space, people in the manufacturing space, people in the medical space, and people in the commercial space. So bringing all those best brains together and to collaborate very efficiently and effectively was one of the key success factors in the development of this vaccine in record times, right? Like people say, well, how could you develop a vaccine in 9 months when usually it takes years? The answer is that collaboration played a very important role, but also we took many steps that traditionally we will do them sequentially. We did them in parallel.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit more about that story, because I think it's like, I want to almost like close my eyes and feel your stress and feel like what were the decisions you had to make. And more importantly, what do you think is the superpower that you have that made you successful in that role? Because yes, there were a lot of people and it wasn't only your success, but you kind of coordinated, right? And get everybody to work towards the same goal. So what's your superpower?
Well, in terms of superpower, I have to say that leadership is one of the areas that I take immense pride. While we were developing the vaccine, at the beginning, of course, we didn't know if we're going to be able to find a solution. Mm-hmm. However, we felt privileged. We felt privileged having given the opportunity to look for that solution, to find a vaccine that will end with, as we all know, a devastating pandemic. And all this was achieved because the people that were involved were totally committed and inspired by that opportunity. We thought that if not us, then who? And that gave us the energy, that gave us the drive to work 7 days a week, 14 to 18 hours day long, for months nonstop.
Well, I mean, but you say, if not us, who? I don't have the data, but I imagine there were a lot of people trying. If you read the story of Shackleton that was trying to get to the South Pole, he was trying, but there were like all these other sailors trying to get to the South Pole. I imagine there were a lot of teams that were trying to create a vaccine, and you guys did it. And you're saying they were inspired by the mission, but 14-hour days, 14, 18-hour days, 7 days a week. How much inspiration do you need? Like, what did you no? It's like you're leaving your family. So what do you think were your take credit? I feel like you're not taking the credit of your leadership. You're saying the situation, everybody. What do you feel like you did? How did you inspire them?
And tell us
You're
the story.
absolutely-
How
Yes.
was it?
Well, you're absolutely right that leadership, I do consider leadership to be one of my superpowers. I read a book titled 5 Graces of Leadership by the author of Gary Burningsong. And that book resonated very strongly with me because I was aligned with the 5 graces of leadership, which include G for gratitude, R for resilience, A for aspiration, C for courage.
I was going to say commitment. Okay, but all right. Yes.
Courage, and E for excellence. The author uses E for empathy, but in my case, excellence was extremely important because excellence became a signature of my team and of myself. And then to me, gratitude meant recognizing the efforts of the people in my team, the people involved, especially when they were going above and beyond.
Yeah.
At the same time, resilience. I think that us Latins, immigrants, resilience is almost in our DNA.
Yeah.
And resilience, being resourceful and making things happen and never giving up was also an important leadership trait that I conveyed to my team. At the same time, aspiration. Like I said at the beginning, always aiming high and always going beyond what is expected. Because if you aim high, your achievements are always going to be better than what is already available. Let's put it that way. And then comes courage, right? Courage, we need to have the courage to, first of all, take thoughtful risks, both at a personal and at a professional life, and also have the courage to be our unapologetic self, to speak up, to put forward our thoughts and our ideas. And then after courage, of course, excellence, like I said. And for me, excellence was extremely important because the environment that I was in was extremely, extremely competitive.
Did you ever doubt that you were going to achieve, like that you were going to end up with a vaccine that worked?
Yes.
Yes. How did you get yourself like out of the
Summer
funk?
of 2020,
Yes.
we weren't sure. We weren't sure at all. And it was not until the fall of 2020 that we got the results of the clinical trials that told us, yes, we have a vaccine that is effective. Yes, we have a vaccine that is safe. And yes, we have figured out how to manufacture a vaccine in a platform that has not been manufactured ever before, which was the messenger RNA. And of course, with characteristics that we needed to figure out, like a temperature of -70, we needed to figure out how are we going to get those vaccines to the hands of as many people as possible around the world with a temperature that needed to be -70 degrees, such that the vaccine remains stable. And at the same time, the launch, the commercial launch, and all of this needed to be done
By yesterday.
in the shortest period of time because millions of people were dying, unfortunately, around us. So the pressure to get it done and to get it done out there was incredible. However, something that I want to take the opportunity to emphasize is that safety was never, ever, ever compromised.
Right.
Putting forward a vaccine that is absolutely safe for everybody, it was an extremely important aspect of how we went about developing this vaccine.
I want to talk a little bit about that time. It almost like COVID in my mind is like a black zone. I blocked it. I don't want to go ever back to that in my memory because it was so painful. I remember distinctively that time and when it came out that there was a vaccine and that it was going to be possible and that it was you. I can only imagine how was the process and the pressure and what you just said, all of a sudden clicked in me. maybe it's because you were a Latina that you were able to put your collaborative mind, your leadership as a family style that inspired everybody to go, that you were able to multitask doing sequential things. I never thought about it.
Yeah.
But why don't we celebrate more of that? Why don't we just put you know, like as a poster child so that we can start having more presidents of companies, of countries and organizations, because we're able to do that. Do you think it is your Latini that intervened not only in your excellence, but also in the miracle that you performed?
You know, now that you put it that way, maybe subconsciously. Consciously, I have to, be honest,
Yeah.
I did not think about that. But subconsciously, probably because familismo is something that has been core to the way that I work with my team, right? At Pfizer, the vaccine team was a vaccine family. And and for me, how do I achieve that commitment and that engagement from my team comes along the lines of really being authentic, transparent, genuine, and getting to know the people in my team to deeper levels, understanding their needs, their aspirations, and helping them in their career journey to get to their aspiration. That turn into very quick trust.
Yes.
And a combination of trust with a clear purpose, which for us was to have a profound impact on global public health, and a clear vision, which for us was to bring breakthroughs that will change people's life. When you put those three elements together, you have teams that move mountains, that really nothing can get in the way of making things happen.
I feel like, I don't know if you've tried to use Midjourney, which is the ChatGPT for images, and it's so biased. Like if you write, please draw a senator, it's always going to draw a white man, right? And I assure you that if you say, please draw the leader of the team that is developing a medicine that it's like, you have to do it in a short period of time, under stress, under resourced, whatever, it's going probably to draw a white man that is with a whip, like, do it fast, we have to get it done, and like with fear. And I imagine that if it had been a person that was living with fear, it wouldn't have been successful, it wouldn't have been safe.
As you said, many other teams were trying. But what I am getting fascinated about is that there are universities and incredible academic institutions that are getting and preparing Latinos on biology or on business and so on. We are not prepared enough. We don't have the schools to understand and be aware of our cultural nuances and how that bring the leadership that we have. If we would have known that because we're collective, because we're familismo, because we're building trust, we therefore can lead those type of things. If we would be aware not only in the excellence on the issue, but also in what our culture brings us as a superpower, then you can start trusting and raising your hand more and applying for different jobs, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that you mentioned this at the beginning, right? It's hard to relate to something that you cannot see.
Yeah.
And having more role models that give you the confidence to say, oh, this person was able to achieve it, so can I. And it was not easy. I mean, again, it's not easy to achieve what we leaders, Latin leaders have achieved. Yet, with perseverance, with resilience, it can definitely be done.
But I want more than that, because that we have. We have the perseverance, we have the resilience, we have the resourcefulness, we have the familismo, we have all of that. What we don't have is the awareness of it. We don't have the Aztec moment to say, like, holy cow. And I want Latinas to realize it earlier. Shortcut to your success is to realize your power because you're a Latina. As you said, being not only authentically yourself, but being aware of the superpowers that you bring.
Absolutely. Could not have said it better.
Okay, so we spoke about the fact that probably a lot of companies were trying to come up with a vaccine. And having myself worked in big and small companies, I usually associate speed with small companies. So I was very surprised to hear that the company that was able to do it fast was so big. Why do you think that despite its size, Pfizer was able to do it in record time?
Basically, resources, expertise, experience. I do believe that Pfizer does bring some of the best brains together, the best brains in research and development, the best brains in regulatory, the best brains in manufacturing, medical, commercial. And for smaller companies, that is harder. So I think that those are some of the reasons or some of the factors that contributed for Pfizer to be. But resources is a huge one.
And they must have been willing to break their own rules for how. Just like you said, instead of doing like one step after the other, doing things in parallel.
Absolutely.
When COVID happened, I remember I started looking at how my foundation can react. And we were about to launch our brand, Hispanic Star. And we said, like, no launching any brand, like Hispanic Star in action. So we mobilized 20 companies to donate products for the Latino community. We established emergency relief groups all across the country. And because I was doing all that donation and mobilization of emergency giving to the Latino community, because you need to know, we're not prepared as a country to address Latinos. The warehouses of the traditional givers are in New Orleans or in Alabama, and it's not where we are. We're in Chicago, in Miami, in Texas, and we just had to build our last mile ourselves. And because of that, I was an emergency worker. I was one of the first people that got your vaccine, and I had to fly to Odessa, Texas, to get it. I think that in the first week in which they were released. I want to know, what was the story of developing the vaccine? How was it?
Well, I alluded to the fact that we did take all the steps that before were sequential, we did it in parallel. But there are many steps that needed to take place, from the discovery to the commercialization. For example, the big steps that I mentioned before, that goes along the lines of designing a clinical trial, identifying the sites where the trials are going to be done, all this in parallel, investing at risk on raw material for the manufacturing, on the different manufacturing pieces that we were designing, thinking that that's what's going to be needed to manufacture this vaccine. Again, we have not manufactured any vaccine on the messenger RNA platform, so that was completely new to us.
Because the virus was acting very differently and attacking in a very aggressive way, and it was developing mutations, correct?
Yes, but it was a different, messenger RNA is a completely different platform than any other platform that has been used with any other vaccine before. So nobody in the world had ever manufactured a messenger RNA vaccine. So we were starting from zero with a blank sheet of paper. But that's in the manufacturing side. Then comes the distribution, to your point. How are we going to get millions and millions of doses all over the world equitably? And that became a huge challenge, right? Every country wanted to have the vaccine first. And how do you manage that? We were extremely excited that by November of 2020, we had an efficacious and safe vaccine. But then comes the question of how many doses and where do they go? And we only had 20 million doses. Mm-hmm. How do we distribute those 20 million
And who
doses?
decides who are worth? I remember that the debate. I was in the middle of it.
Very, very, very difficult. Because, of course, you want everybody to have the same opportunity, but not everybody was able to have the same opportunity. And as time went by, I'm sure that you've already seen that, unfortunately, developing countries were the ones that were not able to receive the vaccine as fast as the developed countries. And the reality was, the reason was that, unfortunately, those countries did not have the infrastructure to distribute the vaccine to their populations. And what did we do? Well, then we partner with those governments to help them develop the infrastructure to teach them how to do mass vaccination that in the United States was done very well, but in many other countries that was not the case.
Yeah, incredible, gigantic, Hercules,
Yes,
Herculean job or whatever you call it. It's incredible. Let's talk about you and the identity. How your Latinidad throughout your incredible career has helped, or being an obstacle. Did you have to dial down, or like, where was a superpower?
Yes, well, I have to say that, of course, at the beginning of my career, I felt pressured to conform to a corporate mold. And I found myself downplaying important parts of myself. Fortunately, I got rid of my insecurities, matured, and grew personally and professionally, which then allowed me to learn that being my authentic self really gave me an edge, because nobody else could come to the table with my knowledge, with my diversity. And again, nobody else could come to the table with my experiences. Basically, nobody else could be me.
So you said, fortunately, you grew out of it. Does it mean it was like years? Like it was just you were a more mature person, or did anything happen that, because in my case, I feel like it's just being older that I feel more secure in myself. Is that what happened?
Well, you see, Cynthia, what happens is that 20 years ago, we did not have this type of podcasts. We did not have this type of opportunities that raise awareness, that gives the reassurance to younger women in corporate America to believe that they can be anything that they want and they can go as far as they want. With time, we have been able to do more of that. Nevertheless, there's still a big space to be filled with more of these opportunities, to your point, to raise awareness on the STEM area, to raise awareness on, for each and every one of us Latina women, to be unapologetically ourselves. And my accent is one of the things that I am very proud of. Why? Because it makes me different. It makes me special. It makes me worldly. And again, I do believe that us being self-assured about who we are and what we can achieve really takes us very far. And we just cannot let anything or anybody hold us back.
But did you experience any funny reaction, any down looking because of your accent or your background? Was there any time in which you felt stereotyped?
Well, yes. We all receive feedback. And I think that a feedback that Latin women receive a lot is communication skills or presence. What is that feedback of, like, you need to have more corporate presence?
Yeah, to be more polished, no? More like...
Yes, exactly. And at the beginning, I would welcome the feedback and agree and learn from it. But then later in my career, when I was told, oh, we're going to give you a communication coach, I said, why? Joe Blow does not have a communication coach, or David does not have a communication coach. There were many times that I was the only woman and Latina. And so what? So I do use my hands to communicate, and that's okay as long as it's not too excessive, that is distractive. That's a feedback that I've received. And again, I do speak slowly because I do have an accent, and I will make sure that people do understand me. But the content of my communication is there. And I think that that's extremely important, that we do as Latina women, prepare when it comes to presentations, when it comes to going to meetings, whether it is with a cross-functional team or with upper management, that we think ahead. What are the questions that we might be receiving, and prepare those questions, anticipate those questions and prepare for those questions, because we want to be concise and we want to come across that we command on our expertise and on our knowledge.
Yeah. Did you take the training? Did they
At the
give you-
beginning, I did. Then later, I told HR, no, you give the coach to Joe Blow and to David,
Yes.
because I feel that I'm already where I need to be when it comes to communication.
We have to learn how to take hurtful feedback, but at
And
some
when-
point we need to learn how to stop it and say like, I'm good. And that's an incredibly great point. Just on the being Latino and in the pharma industry, maybe there's fear for Latinos to get into it and they don't apply as much. We don't get into clinical trials as much because we feel that we're not going to be understood. Being a woman is already like lesser of a representation than men. How could we encourage more Latinos to get into the industry?
I think we have already talked about it a little bit, right? In providing the role models of people that are in the industry that are Latina and that are women. And at the same time, providing training that help people develop self-confidence, because sometimes it's a lot along self-confidence, but also many times it's along the lines of, am I going to be able to have children? Am I going to be able to have a career and be a mother? As you know, for Latinas, it is important for us, for many of us, to have family. And I've talked to young women asking me that question. Well, my mother tells me that if I take this high intense job in science, or even in Wall Street, another area that is pretty intense, how am I going to be able to cook for my family? Or how am I going to be able to take care of my husband? Well, you find time to do both. And if you have a good job, you can also pay for people to help you do that. I mean, I'm definitely not doing everything that I've done alone. I have a supportive husband. I have help with the children when they were small.
What I meant, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. What I meant is we're almost 20% of the population, but only 2% lawyers, 1% economists, and 1% in pharma. And I wonder whether it's because we just don't feel that we're going to be included and being able to be ourselves.
Maybe it is a combination of that, but I think it's also what I hear a lot when I talk to people that I'm trying to encourage to come in STEM is that fear if they're going to be able to be successful in that space. And again, I think that fear comes from lack of knowledge or lack of examples or lack of really, again,
Mentors,
role models.
yeah.
Exactly.
We have I think at some point we should put on our social media like there's a graph that says what careers are going to be more
Prone for Latinos to succeed?
Prone for people to succeed. You know, like right now, if you study STEM, you're probably going to have a more solid career. You're always going to be able to have a job. Like, let's tell the next generation like, what to study, what type of careers.
Yeah, that's what the question before.
Exactly. And I think like Latinos are great entrepreneurs, and maybe we choose careers that historically have been easier for us to get into because those are the role models that we have. But the future is like there's a lot of careers that we don't see Latinos, and I feel like that's where the growth is. So I want to see engineers, data scientists, like product managers, artificial intelligence experts. Like that's what we need Latinos to study now, Latinas.
Yeah, absolutely. And really having women in leadership roles. I mean, in the tech space, still, there is a very small percentage of women and an even more smaller percentage of Latino women. We need more women, Latinas, in leadership roles.
And
how do we achieve that?
I want to make sure that all pharma companies hear your story and how, because you were a Latina, you injected so much leadership into the success of a breakthrough, global breakthrough like creating the vaccine, so that they can start trying to hire more Latinas, invest in more Latinas, and so on. Because I think that is both ways. It's not only us, is the industry has to lean in big time.
Exactly. We need to continue doing a lot more of what we're doing now. And of course, we also need to vote. Latin people need to vote because the leaders in the government also have a huge impact. I mean, all these changes in laws that now before universities, universities were proning or having larger opportunities for minorities, and now that is being stepped back. If we don't have students in colleges that are Latins, how we don't have a pool for corporate America to bring them into leadership roles.
And I have good news. According to the Hispanic Sentiment Study, and this is the first time I share this, that we received yesterday, the unity of the Latino community has increased from 15% that felt united in 2018 to 50% by 2023. So we're acting more as a bloc, where Mexicans, Colombians, Venezuelans, we're opening the door for each other, we're supporting each other. So our vote, when you feel that you're with a bigger group, that you're more united, that you want to be, like the likelihood is we're going to start raising our hand more. We're going to start like pushing each other more. So the great news is that not only we're a superpower economically, but together we're getting stronger together. So more unity and more pride means more votes, more pushing each other. So less elbowing each other and more supporting each other, which is fascinating. So we love the term flip the script. Flip the script understood as flipping the script from stereotypes to values, from fears to truth. And we are very much stereotyped. There's a number of stereotypes and unconscious biases that are associated to Latinos, either from the corporate side or from ourselves. What do you think are some of the things that we could flip the script?
I'm very proud to be a woman. I'm very proud to be Latin. And my heritage plays an important part on my daily activities, on my energy, not only because I want to demonstrate the positive impact and the great contributions that Latins are already having in our society, but also to help overcome the inequalities that unfortunately are still there.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Okay, so we want to talk about the playbook. When we started this podcast, we actually started with a list of things that, based on conventional wisdom, the things that somebody has to do to climb the ladder. I shared with you the list, and now I'm asking you to either debunk or confirm any of them. What do you want to talk about?
I want to confirm the importance of speaking up, the importance of being a strong communicator, even if we have an accent. Don't be shy. However, do it well. To do it well, you need to prepare, and stay updated in your expertise area. Make sure that you know more than everybody in the room in your area. You don't have to know everything, of course. Nobody knows everything. But make sure that you do know everything that you need to know about your expertise, about your area of responsibility, command the room. And basically because, again, knowledge is power.
There's I learned once that there's this tendency when you become a leader to not want to say, I don't know. So some people just get to a leadership position and think that they have to answer with authority. Doesn't matter if, like, it's like you're asking me how to raise children, but I'm actually, like, your boss. Like, I shouldn't be commenting on that. And people talk about how much trust you lose and how much credibility you lose as a leader when you try to answer on areas that you don't know. So I love that you're saying speak up, but also know what you don't know. I feel comfortable saying, you know what, I'm going to let the experts talk about this.
Absolutely. And again, you don't need to know the answers to everything when you are, in a presentation or in a meeting, whether it is with upper management or whether it is in a cross-functional team. It's okay to say, I don't have the details to that question right now, but I'm going to get them back to you before the end of today. And do get back to that response before the end of the day, because then that reflects that you are in command with your knowledge, but also trust and confidence. It helps you create trust and confidence on yourself.
Yeah, great. Love it. So now we would love for you to go back in memory lane and talk to your 30-year-old self and give her a piece of advice that you wish somebody had given you.
To be unapologetically yourself. To not be afraid to speak up. Aim high and fix whatever you can fix. Yet, there are going to be things that are beyond your control and that you cannot fix. Don't let those pull you down. And last but definitely not least, don't let anything or anybody hold you back.
I love that. You know, this podcast was going to be called A la Latina, the playbook to be your unapologetic self, but it's a little bit hard to pronounce, so we changed it to your authentic self, but we really mean unapologetic.
So those 4 points are the Nanette playbook, isn't it?
Absolutely. Especially, again, even though it's hard to pronounce, I like to say it many, many times because it's so true. Unapologetic. Be unapologetic. Because being your authentic self, yes, but being unapologetic about who you are, exactly, goes even further.
And I cannot be more grateful for your time, your wisdom, for your incredible work in saving so many lives, in the work that you did in the vaccine and throughout your life. You're an inspiration.
Well, thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Cynthia. It is my honor to be here with you guys. And again, my objective is to pay forward to the Latin younger generation that is coming right in front of us.
And with your wisdom and your support, we're going to get Latinas to succeed and lead
A la Latina!